and welcome to Gwinnett County Public Library. My name is Amy Perry, and I'm the Adult Services Specialist here at the library. Thank you so much for joining us today for this writer's workshop. Your first book, start it, finish it, sell it. I'd like to introduce you today to today's presenter, George Weinstein. George is the author of several diverse novels, from mystery to modern romance. He's the executive director of the historic Atlanta Writers Circle and director of the annual Atlanta Writers Conference. George has a passion for writing, and he likes to share that passion with others. Please give a warm welcome to George Weinstein.
Thank you, Amy, and I'm going to wander around a little bit. I'm not a podium guy, so everybody's got a handout, right? All right, let me get one. Okay, so right at the very top, there's some italics there that says, don't worry, every author you can name started in with the same questions in the same place as you, the same concerns. Everybody starts the same way, which is, how do I do this? How do I start it? How do I finish something? And then what do I do with it once I finished it? And so this, hopefully front and back, will give you something that you can hold on to for years, to give you inspiration and to give you answers, hopefully. So the first question is, why do you want to do this thing? Why write? Why do this crazy thing where you take these abstract squiggles and lines that we call words and string them together in such a way that, to communicate? So why do you want to do that? So hands. Why do you want to write? Why are you here? You could be doing anything. Yes?
Because it's fun.
It's fun. Hold on to that. Hold on to it's fun. It's fun will get you through a whole lot, because this is a very difficult thing to do. And if you can keep going back to, but it's fun, that'll give you motivation. That's good. I love that answer.
I loved reading as a kid, and my 7-year-old loves reading now. And I kind of want her to be able to go to a library or bookstore and see her dad's name on the book.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that was me. When I was 6 years old, I was writing plays for my stuffed animals to act out, to entertain my brother and sister. I'd set them up on the bed and have them talk to each other and act out things. As soon as I learned to read, I wanted to write. So other things. Why do you want to write? Yep.
I think you get insights in life. You want to express them somehow through writing, and writing is a skill.
Yes.
If you don't know how to do that, it stays in you. There are insights, discoveries you make through life journey, and which is nice to tell sometimes or share it with others. That's another reason.
That's wonderful. You.
My parents have a beautiful love story, and I want to write it down so generations after is going to be able to read it. And that's really my goal. I just want to make sure that this beautiful love story is going to get down.
Right. And capture it for the family. That's great. That's a great reason to write.
I like telling a story that can be compelling to people that didn't know the story. So
that's lovely. Yep. Yes, in the back.
I'm also writing for my family, but it's been fun, as he said, just letting it unfold. And going back in time, and I just turned 60, and isn't that what old people do? In the old days. So I want my future ancestors, I hope to be a grandparent one day. I may never be one, but want them to know a little bit about where I came from, their grandparents, their parents, who are my kids.
Yep.
True stories.
Yep. Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, so y'all got a variety of reasons for doing this, and hopefully it's fun for all of you, because that's one of the things that's going to keep you going. Why aren't you writing, or why did you start and then stop? What's holding you back? So that's the next section. It all comes down to really obstacles and insecurities. How are you going to get over these? So what's stopping you? Ma'am.
I have about 185 pages.
185 pages, uh-huh.
I'm at the point where there's a big change, the turning point in the story.
Right.
And I keep second guessing if it's good enough.
That's right. So you're getting in the way of yourself. You haven't even finished this book and you're wondering if it's good enough already. All right, that's a big one. That's a lot of writers run into that. I've run into that. Yeah.
Process.
Mm-hmm.
You write a proposal before you write your book.
Right. So are you writing nonfiction?
I'm writing fiction.
If you're writing fiction, then forget book proposals. Book proposals only apply to nonfiction and not even memoir, but just straight nonfiction. Some publishers want to see proposals for memoir, but usually they treat memoir like fiction. So if it's straight fiction, then just work on the manuscript. So look at that, you got an answer already. Yeah. Work on your manuscript. Yeah.
I guess it was too busy making a living, so that was the first 35 years it stopped.
Yep. And now you don't need to make a living anymore. That's great.
What's that?
You don't need to make a living anymore. That's great. Yep. So you're in a sweet place.
But yeah.
Yeah. That's
Right.
That's good. Yeah. So my first book, I wrote it quite often while at work. During lunch breaks, I'd get up early, stay up late. Yeah. Work gets in the way of a lot.
The internet.
The internet. Okay. So social media and the internet. Yep. Huge time.
Run into a brick wall.
I'm sorry?
Sometimes you run into a brick wall.
Brick wall.
Yeah, and you just can't get over it. You got to have something, you got it in your head, but you can't get it.
Yep.
That's where I am.
Yeah, it's a big obstacle. Yeah.
Tools. I have several manuscripts, started them, did not finish them. That's because I have a method. I transcribe what I record first because I have no time. I record it first, and then I get it as text, and then I modify that, and it becomes compile everything together to a manuscript.
Right.
And the tools, using the tools available to make it happen, whether it's software, online, whatever it is, the tools. It's not just writing. It's so sometimes very, very slow, but it's good expression. It's just using the tools available out there.
And that slows you down sometimes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you couldn't hear that, so he speaks into a mic, the software transcribes what he's said, and now he's got a manuscript, and now he's got to edit it. So, and there are countless tools out there to help you work on grammar and all the things. And sometimes they can get in the way as much as they can help you, and sometimes they can present an obstacle to you. The way that I look at insecurities and obstacles, they're things that are never going to go away. You are going to have these always. There will always be a reason not to write, not to finish what you've started. There will always be these things because, well, we're human and we get in our own way quite often. There's an author called named Stephen Pressfield who wrote a great book called The War of Art, and it's all about how we get in our own way time and again when we're trying to create something, because to create something is very hard and you have these natural resistances that pop up. So if you're looking for an inspirational book, look at Stephen Pressfield's War of Art, because he talks all about how we get our own way time and again when we're trying to create something, because it's easier not to. This is a very hard thing to do, and I'm going to keep going back to this. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's very easy to get in your own way. So going back to our sheet here, number 3 here under overcoming insecurities and obstacles, writing is a skill. It's just like this gentleman said. It's something you learn. You are not born, you don't come out of the womb knowing how to write, all right? It takes a lifetime, honestly. I've written, let's see, 7 novels now, 7th one hopefully coming out this year, and I still don't know really how to write. Every time I start a new manuscript, it's like I'm starting all over again. You would think by this point I would have some confidence and all that I could just plunge right into it, but I can't. I have to kind of relearn how to do it every time because every book is different. If every book were the same, my readers would get very bored because they've read that book. For me, it's just like starting over again. And I have all the insecurities, is it good enough? Is this idea worth pursuing? Am I going to waste my time? Because even though I'm going to have 7 published books by the end of this year, I have 4 manuscripts that I can remember that I've abandoned somewhere along the way. So I could have 11 books, but there were 4 I didn't finish. And why didn't I finish them? Often because I got in my own way. And I convinced myself that these were not worth finishing, and then moved on to another project that, I did finish in some cases. Other cases, I've abandoned 2 books in a row, and then moved on. So it's just, it happens. It's going to happen to you. It happens to all of us. It's because writing is incredibly difficult, and you just have to keep at it and remember how much joy it gives you. So overcoming obstacles and insecurities, I think, is just all about commitment. So let's talk about, learning to write and how to make that commitment so you can get started and actually finish what you've started. So I've got a bunch of resources for you here. One of the things that I have found that writers really enjoy if they don't have like a book project they want to work on, if they just want to write but they're not sure what to write, you can just start journaling. Journaling counts as writing. So if you were just looking for inspiration, if you just want to start stringing words one after the other and just enjoying that process of doing that, just journal for yourself. Keep a diary. Write down your thoughts at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day. This is what I'm going to do today. This is what I'm really looking forward to. This is what I'm afraid of. This is what gets me jazzed. This is what pulls me down. All of that stuff, totally legitimate way to start writing is just keeping a journal for yourself. So don't be afraid of that, and don't think that doesn't count as writing. What doesn't count as writing? Social media posts, I really don't think count as writing. Emails, that you're writing to friends or for work, that's not the same thing. You're engaging a different part of your brain. But journaling is very creative, and that totally counts. So don't discount journaling. That's a great way to start. And trust the process. So what is the process of writing? The process of writing is putting your butt in the seat and just doing it. Honestly, this is the thing that keeps most writers from finishing their project or even starting their project is there are 100 things in your day that you can do that are easier to do and feel better sometimes to do, and that you can justify to other people than writing. It is really hard to justify time you spend just staring at a notebook or staring at a computer screen and not really having much to show for it at the end of your time there when you have to get up and do something else. Well, how do you spend your day? Well, I worked on this paragraph. The paragraph was about 50 words long, and I've been really struggling about where to put a comma in the second sentence. If you say that to regular people, they think you're nuts. If you say that to the other writer, they say, oh, I can do you one better, I only had 2 sentences and I worked on it all day. And I think I finally decided at the end of the day I'm going to go back to what I drafted the day before. And that could be a day for a writer, is literally working on, just one paragraph or just a couple of sentences until you get it right in your mind. When you give yourself permission to move on, when you think it's good enough that you can just go to that second paragraph. Sometimes that's your day. This is just part of the process. It's a lot of this is just trusting yourself and saying, yeah, it's not exactly what I wanted to say. It's not how I wanted to say it, but it's close and it's good enough. It's good enough that I can go on to the next sentence and then the sentence after that. And it's, it's like doing any kind of craft where you have to, knit one row to knit the next row and then the next row and the next row. Well, if you never knit that first row, you're never going to produce the quilt you wanted or the blanket or whatever, the scarf. It's all about getting started and saying that is good enough so that I can move on. Because if you don't move on, you're never going to finish this. And you want to finish it. If you didn't want to finish it, you wouldn't be here. You'd be out doing something that all these regular people are doing. Writers are not regular people. We're very weird. This is a very weird way to spend your time. But that's okay. You're all here, which means you don't mind being weird. That's good. I have surrounded myself with weird people the last 30 years of my life, and it has been the most satisfying time of my life. So, and we're going to get into that, because the next line is join a community of people like you, other weird people. Who are other weird people? Other writers. So you've got to find your tribe of writers to hang around with. And so, for 20 years I've been a member of the Atlanta Writers Club. It was founded in 1914 by about a dozen people in Midtown Atlanta. They were poets and journalists and authors, book authors, and they just wanted the fellowship of fellow writers. And we've continued that tradition. This is a social club, but it's also an educational club. And so if you want more information about the Atlanta Writers Club, I've got all these brochures up here. You're welcome to take one, take two, take three, take four if you've got friends who you want to tell about this amazing organization. We do writers conferences, two writers conferences every year that I run, where I bring in agents and editors from New York and other hotspots of the literary world. It's not just New York anymore. It's the wonderful thing. It's now on both coasts. You can find really high quality agencies in North Carolina, even here in Georgia. So I bring in agents and editors. You get a chance to share your work with them and get feedback from professionals. There is nothing like getting feedback from professionals to tell you what you're doing right, but also what you need to work on. That lets you move forward. Gives you permission to move forward with your work, because some pro says, hey, you really write well, you just got to work on X, Y, and Z, and you'll have something. Oh, it's nothing better than that. So we run two writers conferences a year for that, and we've also just this year started a self-publishing conference. So if you're interested in self-publishing, on April 23rd, we're doing our very first self-publishing conference down at the Westin Atlanta Airport Hotel. And we've got a whole day of speakers who, the slate of speakers, the people who make their living writing and publishing their own books and running their own businesses as writers. And they will tell you how to do it. And how to treat this like a business, how to pay attention to the craft, and then how to pay attention to the marketing and the other business aspects. So if you're interested in self-publishing, we've started a self-publishing conference too. Our next traditional publishing conference, if you want that, is May 6 and 7. Again, down at the Westin in Atlanta. And I've got websites here for you. You can read that. But the Atlanta Writers Club not only runs conferences, but we do meetings once a month where we bring in two speakers, always talking about different topics on craft and the business of writing. We run critique groups. We have, about 30 critique groups now all around the area and many online for you to join and participate in, sharing your work and giving of yourself, giving other people your opinions about their work. That's the holy grail of writing fellowship, where you put yourself out there. There is nothing more vulnerable than handing somebody something you've written and say, tell me what you think, honestly what you think. Don't sugarcoat it. If I've made some mistakes, if something does make sense, you got to tell me. And I'm going to do the same for you. That's you at your most vulnerable as a writer, and also the most fulfilling as a writer, because you learn so much about the craft by reading other people's stuff and say, I can do that in my work. I see what they're doing, and this is really good, and I can apply this to my work. Or, ooh, I'm glad I don't make those kind of mistakes. Or, and you see that a lot. And quite often you see, boy, they do this really well. I make mistakes about this all the time, and I can learn something here. All the time. You read your work out loud. When you read your work out loud, you're going to hear things that you never see when you're just editing on the screen or on paper. There's a magic about reading your work out loud to other people when you're very self-conscious. You say, oh, that dialogue doesn't read right. People don't talk like that. I've been staring at this same line on the screen for 3 months, and that never occurred to me. But when I say it out loud, ooh, cringe. Yeah, people don't talk like that. That's gold. That is absolute gold. So find a critique group. Start sharing your work and start contributing to other people and their improvement. All right. The next line says, read what you write and read about writing. All good writers are great readers. These are people who love to read. I have never met a good writer who also doesn't love to read. I'll say that again. I have never, ever, 20 years of running the Atlanta Writers Club and being support for the Atlanta Writers Club, ever met a writer who does not like to read. Is there anybody in here who does not like to read? I understand if you don't have time to read. We'll talk about that in a second. But is there anybody who doesn't like to read? See, we all love to read. Isn't that why we became writers in the first place? Because we fell in love with books when we were kids or adults, whenever you had time to read. And we said, I want to do this too. So read. And honestly, I got to tell you, I have not cracked a book in years. I don't have time to read. So what do? I listen to audiobooks. So if you don't have time to read, I guarantee you are doing something during your day. You are in your car for 30 minutes or an hour. You are making meals for your family. You are doing something where your actions are kind of automatic and there's a creative part of your brain that's kind of lying dormant. And sometimes we fill that up with Spotify or the TV on in the background or the radio on. Think about an audiobook instead. I always have an audiobook on my phone that I'm listening to when I'm doing anything that's boring and not creative. Because, yeah, I get to enjoy story while I'm also making dinner or while I'm also driving, doing something else that's kind of automatic. So even if you don't have time to read, you do. It's just called listening to a book instead of reading a book. And I swear to you, that is the same as reading a book. You are envisioning what's going on. You're listening to the dialogue. You're listening to the way the author, does the narrative from sentence to sentence to sentence. You go, oh, that's really beautiful. Sometimes hearing it might strike you even better than when you read it on a page, especially if it's well acted. So consider audiobooks if you don't have time to read, like I don't have time to read. All right, so the first thing there is understanding your genre. What's a genre? The genre is, where would you categorize this book? In this library, where would you find this book? Are you reading fiction, nonfiction? Okay, if you're reading fiction, then you get into the different categories of fiction, right? They don't just have all the books all in one place alphabetically. There are mysteries, there's horror, there's romance, there's science fiction, there's literary fiction, book club fiction, all of these things. If you decide, I want to really learn how to write a mystery, what are you going to do? You're going to read mysteries, right? And you probably are already. That's why you decided you wanted to write a mystery, because you love reading mysteries. You go, boy, I think I would like to try that. So find your genre and read. Read the bestsellers. Read books by authors you've never heard of. Read in that genre that you want to write in and learn from it. Go to school on it. Figure out what they're doing. So when you are in the genre you love, pay attention to the twists and the turns and the way they use language, the length of their chapters, the length of their sentences. You pay attention to all of those mechanics and it'll start to become second nature to you. And then when you're writing, all of that will come out, but through your fingertips, through your mind, and you're going to put your own spin on it. And that's the art of writing. And so I've got a bunch of resources for you from Stephen King's On Writing, which is still, what did he write that 30 years ago? That's still kind of the Bible for writers. It's a wonderful book. It's kind of half memoir and half mechanics of writing and editing. Robert McKee, he's a story consultant, really a story genius. Sean Coyne has written a book called Story Grid. Story Grid is excellent for outlining a book, but also taking a manuscript you finished and then kind of putting it through its paces to make sure that it's doing what it was supposed to do. Paying attention to the tenets of each genre. Every genre has its rules. And now I'm going to contradict myself by saying there are no rules in writing. The only rule is do it well. Whatever you're going to do, you got to do it well. But your readers have certain rules that they apply when they're reading a romance. There are certain things they demand to see in a romance novel, right? There are certain things that mystery readers demand to see. I want red herrings. I want the hero being at the victim of the antagonist, the villain. You know, I want clues. I want all of these things that are just basic tenets of a mystery. When you're writing science fiction, I want to see world building. I want to see far out stuff. I don't want to see everybody doing what we do today because I'm reading science fiction. I want my mind blown with new fantastical ideas. There are certain things that every reader expects. And so you have to learn how to do that. How do you learn to do that? You read that genre, right? Then we've covered that. So I've got lots of resources from you. Some people tell me, well, I don't write because I was never really good in English class. I was never very good at grammar. There are plenty of books on grammar and punctuation, so I've given you some resources. There's really no excuse not to learn how to do this stuff because really brilliant people have written great books about how to learn how to do it. So don't let, fear of grammar, fear of punctuation, things like that get in your way. There are also really good artificial intelligence tools now. It's not just Microsoft Word with, some people here are old enough to remember Clippy. Remember Clippy, the little paperclip guy in Microsoft Word when it came out in the 90s? You say, oh, you look like you're writing a cover letter. Can I help you? And he would guide you through the tenets of writing a cover letter, and he would flag, mistakes and stuff like that. It's not like that anymore. There are so many really good Pro Writing Aid and Grammarly and a whole bunch of good programs out there that can clean that stuff up for you. And hopefully you're paying attention to what it's cleaning up so you don't have to keep making those mistakes over and over again. That's really the point of these programs. It's not just to clean up your work, but it's to teach you. So pay attention to what it's flagging and what it's correcting. You can learn from it. Then you stop making those mistakes. You become more efficient as a writer. I've also got lots of periodicals here for you. So if you want to read interviews with writers, if you want to learn about upcoming conferences and contests, if you want to read interviews with agents and publishers, The Writer and Writer's Digest, terrific magazines. If you want something at a little higher level, more literary, Poets and Writers magazine, it's terrific, really good interviews in there, and good lists of conferences. There's also tools if you want to learn about agents and editors. Tons of stuff online, but the Bibles are still Writer's Market and Literary Marketplace. The library has copies of them. Do not pay hundreds of dollars for something that's going to be out of date in a year. use the online resources or use the library copies. And I've got, you know, some websites here, but there are, Lord, thousands of websites for you. Had a guy in my critique group a while back who just kept making the same basic writing and English mistakes over and over again. And he finally decided to start taking adult ed classes. So that's that next item on our list. If you don't feel confident in your ability to write just because English is a second language, because you never really paid attention in school, countless reasons why we did not excel at writing when we were younger and that are stopping us today, you can take some adult ed classes. For those of us of a certain age, these classes are free. So really great opportunities out there to get yourself back up to speed so that that doesn't become an excuse not to do what you want to do. More ways to learn how to write. This is my favorite section. So the first one is the writer as a magician. And this is the way I think about writing, and I kind of hinted at it before. Writing is hard because you're taking abstract symbols and trying to string them together in such a way that you communicate something that other people will understand. I mean, think about it, right? Look at the letters on this page. These letters don't mean anything. There is no inherent meaning to these swirls and squiggles and lines. You had to be taught what they meant, right? You didn't come out of the womb knowing how to interpret these things. It's all made up. That's why they send us to school, or that's why we homeschool our kids. Because we have to learn how to decipher these abstract symbols that's called language, right? And for some of you, that might be a weird way to look at letters and words, but it's absolutely true. They mean nothing. We had to be told what every single letter looks like, sounds like, the way it changes when it gets up against other letters. We had to learn it all. So if you can take these abstract, meaningless things, these meaningless squiggles and swirls and lines and curves, if you can take these abstract symbols and string them together in such a way that you communicate an idea that changes somebody's thinking, that you can make somebody feel something, that you can make somebody laugh, cry, shiver in terror, any real emotion, get angry. If you can make somebody feel a genuine, deep down, real human emotion with abstract symbols, well, my friends, you are doing magic. That is pure magic. And we can all be magicians. All we have to do is master how to take these abstract symbols and string them together in such a way that we can make people feel something genuine, or make them learn something, change their perception of something, change their way of looking at something. That's doing magic. And it's the most satisfying magic there is to do. And honestly, unfortunately, I think it's the only magic that most of us can do. So I like to think of the writer as a magician. That's what gets me jazzed. So that's my fun in writing, is can I take these abstract symbols that are utterly meaningless and weave that spell so that, you know, my readers will feel something. I'm a novelist. I'm not trying to teach people anything. I'm just trying to entertain them. And I'm trying to get them angry and make them sad and make them laugh and feel all of those emotions. And so, you know, that's when I get jazzed, when, you know, I can string these symbols together and make somebody feel something. So I like to think of the writer as a magician. My good friend, the late Terry Kay, passed away in 2020. He had a method that he used to teach. I've given you here, he would call it the writer as typist. So if you take a book written by your favorite author, and we all have somebody, even if we can't name off the top of our heads, where you've read their book and you thought, gosh, I would have loved to have written this book. I have reread this book 2, 3, 4 countless times. This is my favorite author. I love their style. I love the ideas they convey. I love their dialogue. I love everything about the way they write. I wish I could write like them. You can learn how to write like them. And Terry Kay's method was type their book. He says it's not plagiarism, because you're not going to do anything with this. You're not going to try to publish it under another name, under a pseudonym or something like that. So you're not going to pass this work off as your own. What you're doing when you type their book, you start at chapter 1 and you type exactly what they have written. By the time you're halfway through that book, Terry insists, and I've seen it happen, you are thinking like that writer. It's spooky. You can anticipate what's going to happen because, 1, you've read the book numerous times, but 2, you are starting to think the way, I love Pat Conroy, start thinking the way Pat Conroy was constructing this book. And I know exactly what this guy is going to say next because I've been typing every word of dialogue this person has said, and now I get them. I understand these characters now at a level that's like molecular. I know these people because I have typed everything they have done and everything they have said. It's miraculous, and it's kind of magical. But if you want to learn how to write like a certain author, your favorite author, you can learn this way. It's not just reading the book, it's typing their book. And you're not writing their book, you're not rewriting their book, you're not going to do anything with this other than you're going to school on that author, their style, their tone, their word choice, plot construction, whatever it is. It's really miraculous, and I hope you'll try that. It's something I had never thought about, but God bless Terry Kay. He used to teach that method all the time. That next line that's in italics, so important. Tell people you are a writer. So, I have had innumerable people come up to me over the years and say, well, when will I feel like I'm a writer? I said, you're a writer right now. Tell people you're a writer. Maybe you haven't finished anything yet. Maybe you've just got an idea in your head. But if you tell people you're a writer, you're making a contract with them that says, hey, I write, therefore I am a writer. And maybe you haven't quite started something, but you're thinking about something. You're still going to write that book, therefore you are a writer. If you tell people you're a writer, enough times you'll drill it into your own head that you're a writer, and you will give yourself permission to write. Because so many of us won't do that. We won't give ourselves the permission to think of ourselves as a writer because, a writer, no. A writer is somebody who's won the Pulitzer Prize. A writer is somebody who's sold 1 million copies of their book. No, that's wrong. The writer is anybody who writes. And honestly, anybody who wants to write has written something. I mean, you didn't come in here because you have never written anything. You've written something. You might have abandoned it. You might have started and stopped on it countless times, or started 100 projects and never seen them through. But you have written something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Call yourself a writer. I had an email from somebody who's gotten her 4th book published. She sent me an email last week, and she said, I'm looking forward to seeing you again. I'm glad the Atlanta Writers Club is getting back in person, because you gave me the best advice years ago by telling me to tell other people that I'm a writer. And I had not been doing that. And since I've started telling other people I'm a writer, I have, in my mind, become a writer. And it's amazing, this contract we make with other people, that suddenly it becomes real when we tell somebody else that I'm a writer. So do that. Tell other people you're a writer. don't hide that, because you're also tending to hide it from yourself when you do decide not to share that with other people. It's like you're ashamed of it, or you're keeping that part secret. Don't do that. Tell other people you're a writer. All right, we're down to the last couple of lines down here on the first page. You write in order to rewrite. Stephen King likes to say, I'll clean up his language a little bit after I get another sip of water. All first drafts suck. They do, because you're working with abstract symbols and we're dealing with something incredibly difficult. One of the most difficult things there is to do, which is take something that's utterly abstract and make it real and visceral for your readers. Really hard to do. So, all first drafts are made to be rewritten. Those of you who are interested in self-publishing, please do us all a favor and do not publish your first draft. Everything can be improved, and it can be improved over multiple drafts. I'm on draft 18 of this manuscript that I have still, in my mind, have convinced myself I have not finished, because I always think I can make it better. So you just have to realize that that first draft is just to get something down. I don't care if you're writing a novel or if you're writing a how-to book, some other form of nonfiction, if you're writing true crime, whatever it is. That first draft is just a template. That's just, bleh, I vomited it out on the page. I just got all my ideas down. Now comes the hard part. The hard part is the rewriting. So you write in order to rewrite. And the rewriting is where the writers become authors, because the writer can write a first draft and then do nothing with it. The author can craft that first draft and make it something that they're proud to self-publish, or they're proud to send to an agent or a publisher. And we'll talk about agents and publishers and all that stuff in a little bit. But please, please, please do not think that everything that comes out of your mind and through your fingers and onto a screen or through a pen onto a pad has to be gold. It's gonna need improving. I'm not gonna say it's gonna stink when it comes out. It might be really good, but it can be better. And that's where the real art of writing is in making these things better and recognizing how it can be better. Recognizing that, oh, if I do this and this, then, we'll get something, maybe much deeper, much more profound, funnier, sadder, whatever it is, whatever you're going for. Simply by rewriting and playing what I call the what-if game. This is how I do all my plots, how I construct dialogue. Everything that happens in one of my novels is because I've gone through, well, what if she said so-and-so? Oh, well, then he would say this. And then what if she said that? Oh, well, then what if he said that? And pretty soon I've got a scene, that maybe takes a turn that the reader didn't expect. And sometimes I don't even expect. Simply because I force myself to answer the what-if questions. I don't know the answer, necessarily. When I'm asking what if, I don't know. Let's think about that. And so, write that down. I don't have it on the paper. Ask yourself what if. Time and again, this can be a powerful way to discover things about the story that you don't even know yet. So I love playing what if. And that helps in the rewriting. When you've got a draft done, don't say, okay, so really all I got to do now is make sure all the periods and commas and all are in the right place, and then this will be ready. No. Interrogate it. Force yourself to play what if with every scene you've written, with every line of dialogue, with every paragraph where something happened, say, well, what if that didn't happen? What if something else happened? And see if that makes it better. See if it makes it more profound. Whatever you are going for, see if that changes things in a positive way for you. So I love the what if game. And then that entering contests. So, you know, it's great to win a contest. Absolutely great to win a contest. But just entering a contest can make you feel so much better about your work. It can give you such a sense of achievement simply by submitting something, because you have taken that step from writing in your own little bubble, away from the prying eyes of the world, to, I wrote this. I don't care if you don't like it. I wrote it. I did this. I finished it. It feels so good. So you ought to enter contests, even if you don't think you have a hope in hell of winning. You ought to do it anyways, because you will feel better about yourself. I'm serious. There is something about the process of just submitting something and submitting to an agent, submitting to a publisher. That act of submission, that pressing send, makes you feel better about your work, because you have achieved something and you've said, I did that. See what you think. How do you like me now? Eventually, you'll start building credentials this way. You'll place in a contest. You'll win a contest. One of the best things that the Writers Club does is we have an annual contest every year. And we do 3 awards. One for it's the Terry K. Prize for Fiction, the Rick Bragg Prize for Nonfiction, and the Natasha Trethewey Prize for Poetry. These are the 3 people who had spoken to the Atlanta Writers Club many times, and we honored them with these by naming our awards after them, with their permission. I still get emails from people who won one of these awards years and years and years ago, and they tell me, well, I got my 4th book published, but my happiest moment was winning that writing contest that the Writers Club put on, because that was the first thing I ever won, and it, you know, gave me such a boost of confidence that I thought, I can do this. So eventually you build your credentials and you build confidence in yourself. But I think that confidence starts, honestly, by just hitting submit. All right, let's flip that page over. And we'll talk about living the writer's life. So some of you have a really good idea what you want to write about. For those of you who don't, here are some ways to interrogate that. Ask these questions of yourself. What types of books do you enjoy? So what, you know, I don't know what to write. Well, what do you like to read? So what kind of books are you enjoying? There's this old saw about write what you know. I think that's wrong. You definitely are going to end up writing what you know, but I think you write what you can find out. So my dad was an amateur historian. I love history. My first 2 novels were historical novels, and I didn't know half of what I needed to know when I embarked on writing these novels. But I could find this information out through libraries. I stumbled upon the plot for my first novel, The 5 Destinies of Carlos Moreno, by reading a footnote in a book of history on the state of Texas. I was just literally sitting in the stacks with a bunch of books and just reading through one, looking for an idea. Because I knew I wanted to write, I was just waiting for inspiration. I came across this footnote that said between 1928 and 1941, the U.S. government, and with the cooperation of the state of Texas, state of Illinois, all through the Southwest and into California, with the cooperation of these states, they deported over 2 million people to Mexico. Half of them were actually American citizens. What? I never heard that. I was never taught that in school. You kidding me? Follow that footnote to a bibliography. Find those books. Read the books about this great repatriation that they don't teach in schools. That's a piece of lost American history. And bingo, I had a novel. It practically wrote itself from just kind of stumbling on a footnote. Write what you can find out. It's you can find out anything you need to know. And thank God there's the internet, and that we're not having to rely on card catalogs and such anymore. Libraries are still great, but the internet gives you, you can literally go anywhere in the world. You can see pictures of anything, and that's sometimes a bad thing. But you can also find out plenty. So something that sometimes when I get a little block, when I'm in my own way, and I think, oh, I don't know if this is working or not, I go to the third thing. What do you feel strongly about? What messages are you trying to convey? What do you want readers to get out of this? So this is a great place to start with deciding what to write, but it's also really helpful in getting yourself unblocked. So, if you have decided, well, I've got this idea, I just don't know how to write it, or I just don't have any ideas. I want to write, I just don't have any ideas. Think about the kind of messages that you want readers to receive. What do you want them to learn? How do you want to change their thinking? What do you want them to feel? If you're a novelist, I insist that it's all about making people feel things. So if you're writing mysteries, you want to make them feel surprised, you want to give them shocks, you want to make them laugh sometimes, you want to make them cry sometimes, you want to make them scared, whatever it is. You want to make them feel things. I think that's why we read novels, is so we can feel deeper. Because there's so much in life that just adds up layers of callous and creates these walls where we stop feeling anything. And I think that's why we read the books we read, because it somehow gets under or around those walls and we feel stuff. It's why sometimes we watch the TV shows we watch. It's because we want to laugh, and there hasn't been anything funny about my day, but if I can put on a show that makes me laugh or at least smile, I feel better. And it's all about feeling. We are feeling creatures. It's what we want. What we want is to experience emotion. So you want your readers to experience emotion. So you're doing your job as a writer when your readers experience emotion. So what do you want them to feel strongly about is the same things that you want to feel strongly about, I think. All right, so strategies for finding time to write. Number one question I get is, how do I find time to write? My life is so busy. I'm raising 3 kids. I work 2 jobs. It's all about sacrifice, unfortunately. The bad news is, in order to write, you got to give up something, because there's probably nobody in this room who's just lying around with 24 hours of idle time. How am I going to fill my day today? Right? Is there anybody? Because I want your life. Is there anybody here who feels like they've just got scads of idle time? And that's why I'm writing, is just because, I'm bored and I don't have anything to do with my days. There's nobody like that. Nobody. So it's about sacrifice. It's about giving up other things that you are currently doing, unfortunately. So you said the internet. It's giving up social media for, cutting back on it at least, so you can find time to write. It's giving up watching, that show that just came on Hulu or Amazon Prime that you were really excited about, and you will spend, all of your nights watching until it's over. It's cutting that back at least, if not giving it up entirely, so you can find time to write. Unfortunately, it means time away from your family. If you've got kids who don't need you 24/7, if you've got a partner, a spouse who doesn't need you 24/7, it's like, guys, this hour is my time. I give you the other 23 hours. And sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't sleep for a full day because you are giving people all of your time. I give you all that time. All I ask is when that door closes, writer at work sign on the door, that's my time. And I love you, and I want to be with you, but this is my time. I've earned this. And you carve out that time when you are not with the people you love, even though you feel guilty about that, even though you know that somebody else would judge you harshly as a parent. Oh, how dare you not spend all your time with your children? I do. There will be plenty of people out there who will judge you for this. Screw them. Doesn't matter. You were trying to accomplish something very difficult that cannot be done if you are doing something else. Writing is one of those things where you're all in. You cannot half-ass this, unfortunately. So you just got to figure out what can I give up? And, not be thrown out of my house, not, have people come at me with sharp objects, not get fired, not, fill in the blank with a horrible consequence. What can I do to, what can I give up so that I can do what I really, really feel compelled to do? And if you don't feel compelled to write right now, if you don't feel compelled to do that, maybe you're not working on the right project for yourself. Maybe you go back to these questions about what messages, would I like readers to take away? What do I want them to feel? And you kind of realign yourself and work on a project where you feel like it would be worth taking time away from doing something else I love or with other people I love, so that you can work on something that's going to be meaningful to you. So unfortunately, it's all about sacrifice. So I've got a couple of blank lines there. I'm going to get a drink of water. Think about what would you put in there to buy yourself more time to write. So we thought about how we're going to carve out some more time to write. And we felt really guilty about it because it means giving up stuff that we are currently doing and that we've probably been doing for a long time and that we enjoy doing. But it's got to be worth it, so you got to be having fun doing this. You got to want to do this because you're going to have to give up something else that you're doing right now that you also enjoy. So it's all about making commitment to the writer's life. Lots of writers recommend setting daily writing goals. My life is such that I cannot write every day. There's just too many things going on that where I would be, stabbed with a sharp object, or I would lose my job, or, responsibilities I have made, commitments I have made to other people would go by the wayside. And I would feel too bad about that. So I don't write every day. When you are just starting out, though, the best way to get into that groove is, even if you can spend 30 minutes a day writing, just 30 minutes a day, half an hour. It's not a lot of time. Break it up into 2 15-minute intervals if you have to. Set yourself a daily writing goal. So even if it's just a short amount of time, that you carve out that time and that is what you do. Even if you don't have an idea right now, even if you feel like you're blocked, that is what you're doing. Don't think, well, I'll go check Facebook and maybe I'll get inspired. No, you're done at that point. When you start making those kind of compromises about, well, I'll do this and maybe it'll inspire me to write, you will never write because you'll always be off on a tangent because writing is so hard. Everything else is easier than writing, I think. It's just so difficult and it's so lonely, and it's so easy to get in your own way by making excuses and by finding other ways to spend your time. You've just made a commitment to write. You've figured out strategies to find time to write. You got to use that time, even if it's writing one sentence and tweaking that sentence and playing with it and playing the what if game. Even if you're doing that, you're taking that first step. You just got to do it. So set yourself a writing goal. I like starting out with an amount of time that I'm going to write, because it's too much pressure to say I'm going to write 500 words. Then you are forever looking at that word count and you're thinking things like, Well, there'd be a really easy way to express what I'm thinking. But if I obfuscate it, if I stick in a bunch of dependent clauses and maybe a couple of em dashes and this little tangential thing, I can really bulk up my word count. Well, now you're just gaming the system. Now you're just, you've set yourself an artificial goal, and now you're just figuring out a way to accomplish it without really achieving anything. So I like amount of time, because you can't cheat that. If it's, I'm going to spend an hour doing it, and that's all I'm going to do, you turn off your social media, turn off your browser, you turn off your phone, you've locked the door, you've got the writer at work note, sticky note, posted on the outside. I am writing, and that's all I'm doing. And that might be some days just staring at a screen or staring at a pad of paper for an hour, and you say, oh, that sucked. But I got other things to do now. And you move on. You will have days like that. We all have days like that. But there will be other days when you hit your hour and you do not realize that 5 minutes have passed, let alone 60. And you think, oh man, I wish I had another hour. What could I give up so I could get another hour at this? And maybe you get a bonus hour. And then maybe you decide that you don't really miss that thing you gave up for the second hour as much as you thought. And suddenly you find yourself with 2 hours a day when you can write. Once you start convincing yourself that you can give up other things and the world did not end, and children did not starve, and spouses did not get abusive, and all of that, then you can start finding more and more time to write. So I think an hourly goal just makes more sense than a word count goal. You'll be a little kinder to yourself with that. But at the same time, you got to be reasonable. You can't overcommit, because as soon as you start failing in these goals, you'll say, it's too hard. I'm just not going to do it. Because again, that voice in the back of your head that's with you all along that said, this is why you never started writing in the first place. This is why you never finished that book. This is why you didn't, can't, don't, won't. That voice gets energized, gets jazzed. You have given it a full course meal when you overcommit to something and then fail in those goals. Unfortunately, we want to stop doing this or not start doing this because it's so hard. So don't give yourself an excuse to fail. Hanging out with fellow writers. So I keep talking about the Atlanta Writers Club. It doesn't have to be the Atlanta Writers Club. Join any organization you want to with other writers. And it is so energizing to be around other writers asking about what they're working on, what pitfalls they've stumbled into, how they've overcome problems, bounce ideas off of each other. Hey, would you take a look at this paragraph? I'll look at a paragraph of yours, and we can start exchanging manuscripts. All of those things are so energizing and will make you so excited to be part of a community that it'll literally change your life. So I mentioned I discovered the Atlanta Writers Club like 2001. And again, it had been around since 1914, but I had never heard of it. I joined a critique group that was outside the Atlanta Writers Club. The person running the critique group says, oh, you ought to check out the AWC. And so since 2001, 20 years ago, I've been involved in the Atlanta Writers Club. All of my best friends are members of the Atlanta Writers Club. My wife is somebody I met through the Atlanta Writers Club. The Atlanta Writers Club has 1,100 members, something like that. It's a great place for dating, by the way. My critique group alone has produced 2 wonderful marriages. So, you probably didn't think of critique group as singles meetup place. It absolutely is. You are never so naked as you are when you hand somebody a manuscript and say, do your worst, make this better. You are utterly unclothed in a very unliteral way, but in a way they're getting insights into your mind that typically we do not share with other people in normal conversation, but you will share with other writers. So I really recommend the fellowship that a writing organization provides you. So don't overlook that one. Hanging out with other writers makes you want to write. When I come back from an Atlanta Writers Club meeting or a critique group meeting, I'm thinking about writing, and I'm thinking about what I want to write. And it just excites me to then get into it. So if you want to get jazzed and stay jazzed, hang out with other writers. So sharing your work regularly. So we talked about critique groups. Even if you have a critique group of 2 people, you and somebody else you trust, somebody else who is at your level or a little better, and somebody who can help you make your work better. That's the sole criterion I have for a critique group is, am I around people who can make my work better? If you reach a point where the people you are working with, the people in your critique group, are not helping you, and you spend all your time helping them, that's lovely. You can call that community service. You can keep doing that if you want, but you need to find another critique group that with more advanced writers who can help you continue to improve. So, sharing your work regularly with people who can help you, who can make it better. And that's, Kim will tell you, this is what I say every time I turn something over to the critique group. I say, make it better. Because that's all I care about, is anybody can look at this and figure out a way to make this better, I think. Any writer's worth their salt. You just surround yourself with people who can constantly challenge you and to improve and can show you how to improve. So important. So using an editor. So if you are not fortunate enough to have a critique group or have writers you trust, you can hire an editor, and you've got my contact information. You can write to me, and I will share plenty of freelance editors around. If it is within your budget to hire somebody, these people will not do this for free. It takes a lot of time to edit. I used to be a professional editor, and it's incredibly time-consuming, but also wearing on you to see people make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And you get this manuscript from somebody who's hired you, at $3 a word or whatever, to, $3 an hour, whatever it is, to $3 a page. Yeah, $3 a page is pretty typical. I know somebody who charges by the word, and I know some others who charge by the hour. But say $3 a page, and you see all of these mistakes on page 1, you say, if that's page 1, which has probably been edited and rewritten more times than every other page in the book, if they're making all these mistakes on page 1, my God, what does page 620 look like? It's incredibly draining, and that's why these people are worth the money that you pay them. So I can recommend some editors to you. I strongly, strongly recommend that you get your work edited, if not by fellow writers in a critique group, then by a professional editor before you self-published or submit it.
Other than punctuation, sentence structure, what does an editor actually do?
Well, there's different levels of editing. So if you didn't hear the question, it's what does an editor do beyond flagging poor sentence structure or grammatical errors, punctuation problems. So there's a level called developmental editing, where they are looking at the overall structure of your novel, the story arc, the character arcs if you're writing a novel, if you're writing nonfiction, the way you're presenting your arguments, the way you're telling that story. And they're basically taking it apart and analyzing all aspects of it and saying, how can this be made better? How can this be a more effective story? How can this be a more effective book? And so there's that level called developmental editing. And then there's line editing. And line editing is where you get into the punctuation problems, poor grammar choices, all of that stuff. And it's making each individual sentence, each individual line correct. And sometimes that's a matter of style choices, where you're intentionally doing something. Does anybody read Cormac McCarthy? Or try to? Cormac McCarthy abhors a quote. There are no quote marks in many of his books. And so you're reading narrative. He got on his horse, he shot the bad man, he did this, he did that. And Jeb, I'm going to ride to the store. What? Oh, somebody's saying that. And you almost have to stop yourself and realize, oh, okay, so somebody said that, and I was reading about what they were doing, and now suddenly it's dialogue. People like that drive me crazy, but it's a style choice Cormac McCarthy makes. So a line editor, would automatically flag that because the rest of us are not Cormac McCarthy, and flag, well, you've left off quotes on dialogue and things like that. So they make each individual sentence, correct within the style that you have chosen to write in. And then there's copy editing. And copy editing is often going back and say you've cited a piece of music that your character is listening to in 1963. And a copy editor is going and researching that and say, oh, that song wasn't released until 1965. Flagging that. Can't be listening to that unless they had a time machine. And maybe they did because you were writing a science fiction story. But probably you've made a mistake. In my best-selling book, Hardscrabble Road, Southern historical fiction set in the 30s and 40s, in an early draft, I had these characters driving over a dam across a lake, a big lake in southwest Georgia. I had somebody flag that for me and say, oh, that dam wasn't built until 1948, and in your story it's 1942. That could not have happened. Oh, thank you. That saved me from a terrible factual problem. Gunplay requires often a lot of copy editing if you don't know what you're talking about, with calibers and mixing up revolvers and pistols and all of that stuff. So copy editors are kind of fact checkers. And so my publisher takes every manuscript through 3 levels of editing, so I get notes back from 3 different editors sequentially, so get developmental edits back, I'll go back, tweak the story, sometimes rewrite large portions of it. In my novel, Watch What You Say, which is a kidnapping suspense thriller, I originally wrote it in first person because I wanted you to really identify with the narrator. And the developmental editor came back and said, I know why you chose first person, because you were afraid that readers won't identify with your main character unless you feel like they're in the main character's head all the time. You're not trusting yourself as a writer. You can write this better in third person and have these other things that you can now show because it's in third person versus first person. He was right. Works much better in third person. I'm glad that I got that developmental edit that basically restructured my whole book and forced me to rewrite almost every damn line. But it was worth it. It absolutely worth it. So a developmental edit is worth their weight in gold. That was a good question. All right, so we're down to carrying writing materials. You have no idea when inspiration will strike. So a memo pad on your phone. Some of you, I see writing down stuff. Make sure you have some writing implements and something to write on with you at all times. You have no idea when inspiration is going to strike you. And I can't count the number of times when I have convinced myself, well, God, that's a great idea. Surely I'll remember that. But by the time I get home from running my errand, it's gone. It's like, oh. That could have been it. That could have been my best-selling idea. That could have been the thing that set my family up for 3 generations. And I didn't have anything to write with, and it's gone. It's gone into the ether. It's in some other writer's head now. There's some people who have this theory of creativity that these are things that are kind of outside of us, and they just jump from head to head. And if it's not used by one person, it just jumps into the next. And I have had friends who have written books and then they go on Amazon and they find out somebody wrote a nearly identical book and published it a year ahead of them, maybe down to the same title. And they go, they stole that. Well, no, they didn't steal that. They had the same idea you did, and they did it faster, and they completed their project while you were binge watching, Yellowstone. That's what happened. And unfortunately, that's what happens. Every once in a while, I'll hear a legit story about plagiarism where somebody clearly stole something. Most often, it's just there are only so many ideas, and somebody had the same idea as you, and so watch what you say. That was not the original title. The original title was The Shape of Lies. Son of a gun, somebody published a book called The Shape of Lies 6 months ahead of this book, and so I had to call the publisher and say, oh my God, we got to change the title. And then, came up with something that I think is better, but somebody had the same idea. Did they steal that from me? No, they just had the same idea.
Is there a way to check titles to make sure that you're not
Yeah, absolutely. Go on Amazon and, and just put in titles, and I have made bad title decisions. So Hardscrabble Road is my best-selling book. And Hardscrabble Road works as a title in two ways, because it's a physical place. It's a real place where these boys grew up. But it's also a really good metaphor for their journey through childhood. So I like a title that has kind of multiple meanings. There are only a few Hardscrabble Road novels. I did a book club talk, though. And I started into the book club talk on Hardscrabble, and somebody put up their hand and said, I thought this was a mystery set in Denmark. And son of a gun, there was a Danish author who had written a novel called Hardscrabble Road that was a murder mystery, and she went on Amazon and bought that one, not the one everybody else had read. So there were only a few books with that as the title. So that really works as the title. Aftermath, which is a amateur sleuth murder mystery, and probably my second most popular book, that's a terrible title. It really worked for me. I really liked it. It makes sense with the story in multiple ways. But there are 30 gajillion books out there with Aftermath in the title. And so if you put in Aftermath, you go page after page before you find mine. Unless it's Aftermath George Weinstein, boom, it comes up. But if you don't know me, and you just said, oh, somebody recommended this murder mystery called Aftermath, it's going to be really hard for you to find. So that's a horrible title. So I highly recommend just putting titles in. And that's really the best way to keep doing it. And as you're writing, continue to do that and make sure that, you don't get into a Shape of Lies situation like I got caught in with Watch What You Say, because there are books getting published every day. Anybody have any questions? Okay. So let's talk about rewarding yourself as a writer. I think. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Thank you.
I have a lot of questions, but the one I'll just narrow it down to is, how do you define finished? I've been working on a novel for 8 years now, and I'm on my third draft. How do you know when you can stick a fork in it?
So how do you know when you're done? I know when I'm done when it makes me physically ill to go through it one more time. When I would rather do the worst thing that I could do to myself rather than go through that manuscript again, because there's a Pulitzer Prize winning author named Da Chen. He had this wonderful quote. He said, if you are absolutely satisfied and pleased with the work that you are submitting, either whether you're self-publishing and you're just putting it up for sale, or you're sending it to your agent or your publisher, if you are absolutely satisfied and pleased, you have not thought hard enough about your story. You should be unhappy. You should think, gosh, if I had another 5 years, this could be the best book, ever written in this genre. If I had another 10 years, this thing could be one of the best books ever. You should think that, but there's not enough time, That's eventually you decide, that is as good as I can do right now, and it's good enough. It's good enough to get it out there, and I'm not going to embarrass myself. People are going to enjoy it. It's going to make people feel things. It's going to teach people. Whatever your purpose is for this book, if it's good enough right now, then maybe you show it to some other people and you say, what do you think of this? What's your ambition for your book? Are you going to self-publish it? Are you going to traditionally publish it?
I haven't decided. I'm thinking I'm going to traditional publish just because I am a dreamer and not a business person.
There you go. And that's how we can actually get to that definition of how you make that decision. So I'm glad you said that. So what I would recommend is you start going to writers' conferences and you start showing it to agents and editors. Give it to them, get a critique on the first 19, 20 pages of it, and start getting professional feedback on it. And they will tell you, oh yeah, this is ready, and they'll tell you they won't tell you at the conference this is ready for publication. They will say, I want to see more. I want to see the rest of your manuscript, which lets you know you got something. There are a pile of people who can write a good first 20 pages. Writing a full novel, a full book, that's another level. And so I know a couple of people, who's gone to the writers' conference year after year after year, and they keep winning awards on their first 20 pages, but they never get a publishing contract, they never get an agent representation, because the rest of their book isn't nearly as highly polished or thought through, broken down and rebuilt and shined and shaped like their first 20 pages. Because that was their objective, was to get an agent to say, oh, I want to see more, rather than to get an agent to say, I want to represent this book, or a publisher to say, I want to publish this book. So I think your next step is start showing it to professionals and getting professional feedback. And if people are, if agents are saying, hey, send me a full manuscript, this has got potential, I'm excited to see the rest, then you got something with the beginning of your book, and then obviously if they read the rest and want to represent it, then you're done. If they come back and say, well, it's not for me, I couldn't identify with the main character, or the plot didn't work for me, or whatever, then you got work to do. And taking that feedback from professionals is very difficult, because this is all subjective. And this is the worst part of writing for public consumption, whether it's writing and then submitting it into the traditional publishing sausage maker, sending it to agents and getting their feedback, sending it to publishers, getting their feedback, or self-publishing it and reading your reviews on Amazon and Goodreads. The hardest part is getting feedback you do not agree with and wondering what to do with this. So what do you do when somebody comes back to you and says, it didn't work for me, I just couldn't identify with your main character. And you just sweated and cried about this main character, and you just you imbued that person with so many wonderful traits and challenging traits, and they were human. You created a golem, and they were, they could pass for human. They were so real, jumping off the page. And then somebody says, I couldn't identify with your main character. 1 star. Oh my God. That is so painful. But what do you do with that? Well, if there are a whole bunch of people who are giving you 1 star and saying, I just couldn't relate to the main character, I didn't like the main character, whatever, well, then maybe you got a problem. If it's just 1 outlier or 2 outliers and a whole bunch of other people are saying, I love this character, I would marry this character if I met this person in real life, then you just discard that. I've got a 1-star review on Amazon that'll never go away for Aftermath that says, this is a mystery, I don't like mysteries. Well, why the F did you buy it? It's got mystery written all over it. Why did you buy this book? And then penalize me with a 1 star that will always pull down all the 5-star reviews. It's out there, you know. I can't do anything with that feedback because this person's an idiot. And sometimes you're just going to get opinions from idiots, and you'll get opinions from professionals, well-respected agents and publishing acquisitions editors, and they just don't get it. They're not in the right headspace. They haven't lived your life. They haven't had your experiences, and they get something that is gold, that will be a bestseller, and it just doesn't hit them right. So at the last Atlanta Writers Conference, I finally met the agent I was hoping to meet, and that was the agent who turned down J.K. Rowling. And they told me, oh my God, yes, it sucks. I go to bed every night thinking that my family could have been set up for generations, whole generations, if I had just been in the right headspace to read her query letter about this, you know, kid magician and this world of magic and all this stuff. I just didn't see the potential. I blew it. You know, and they kick themselves every day for the rest of their lives. They were wrong, and there will be people who give you an opinion about your work that is just flat out wrong, because this is all subjective. There is nothing objective at all about writing, except, yeah, you got to have a period at the end of a sentence. There's some basic rules of communication. But beyond that, you know, where art takes over, there are no rules, and it's all subjective, and there will be countless people who tell you it sucks, and then other people who tell you they love it. And who's right? Well, they're both right, you know. For the people who said it sucks, for them it didn't work for them. God bless, go in peace. For the people who love it, that's your tribe. You embrace those people and you write for those people, the people who get you. It's like the people you decide who you're going to be your friends. You don't keep your people around who you don't like and who make you feel bad, right? You keep people around who reinforce you, who invigorate you, sometimes challenge you, but always have your best interests in heart. Otherwise, they're not very good friends, and you need to re-examine how you're choosing your friends. So those are the kind of readers you want too, and you will find them. You will also find people who are idiots, who give you a one-star review for no damn good reason. It'll happen, you know, it's just part of it, because it's all subjective, and thanks to the internet, everybody can express their opinion about everything. And I don't know, there are a lot of idiots out there. I'm sorry, you know, it's not fair, and it'll be frustrating. So let's get into overcoming writer's block. So we had a gentleman in the back who said, well, you know, you get blocked and you kind of get in your own way. So there's some strategies for overcoming writer's block that I think are helpful, and we kind of touched on these. Reading for inspiration. You want to write a certain kind of book for a certain reason. You've probably read books like that by other writers. Remember those books. Remember why you fell in love with those books and you thought, boy, I would love to write a book like this. Reread those books. So read for inspiration. Get reinvigorated by the people who inspired you in the first place, to pick up a pen or open that blank doc on Word. Work on another writing project or another chapter section. I think this is what I do. So if I get into a point where I've just kind of written myself into a corner, one, that means that the outline I wrote at the beginning did not stand up under, you know, the actual task of writing, where I kind of cheated and I said, oh, and then a miracle occurs, and then here's the rest of my book. And then I kind of hit to, oh, the miracle occurs, and it's not occurring on the page, and what do I do? Oh, shoot, I really don't have a full plot here that hangs together. So what can I do? Do I just stop writing forever? No, you know, I go to another part of the book that I know is solid, and I know that I want to write. Or I have another writing project. There's something else I want to do, and it doesn't mean starting a new manuscript necessarily. Maybe it's just outlining ideas for another book. And sometimes just tricking yourself into thinking about something else, still using the creative part of your mind, lets the little gnome that lives in all of our heads, a little subconscious being who does a lot of the creative work for us, letting that individual focus on something, focusing on your problem while you're kind of distracting yourself over here with another project, and all of a sudden it hits you, oh yeah, I could do this, this, and that. What if this? What if that? Yeah, okay, that worked. Oh, thank God. Okay, I can get back to it. Sometimes that works. The reading for inspiration, yes.
When you say you go to another part of your book, that just brings up one of my basic questions is, what software do you use in order to jump back and forth? Do you have it all in one document?
Yes.
Save separate?
No, I just write in a single Microsoft Word document the entire manuscript. I don't
really jump back and forth between your chapters easily?
Yeah, because I know roughly, well, there's a part of the book where this is going to happen, and and if I need to, I'm going to write a part that I'm going to insert later. I'll just go to the very end of the document, some special characters in there, like if I see 3 ampersands in a row or something like that, I know this is just me breaking so that I can easily do a find on 3 ampersands, and there it is, and I can take it and move into another part. Yeah, I have friends who write like a single, each one of their Word files is a different chapter, but then they have to stitch them all together, and that would drive me crazy. I don't know how they do that. My brain doesn't work that way. So no, I don't work in Google Docs. Maybe I should, because then I could access it, all the time, anywhere. But that's, people have written entire novels on their phones. Right. It's doable. Without my thumbs would get very tired, but people have done that. But that's a really good question.
While you're writing, do you write double space, single space?
Yeah, I use just traditional manuscript formatting. So it's double spaced, 1-inch margins all the way around. And that way it's not something I have to remember to do, excuse me, later on. This is the good stuff, and this is just water. That's alcohol-free, but it tastes really good. Reading for inspiration. So here's a story Terry Kay told about himself. He got to a point in the novel he was writing, and he just got stuck. He just did not know where to go from there. He wasn't a big outliner. He's what we would call a pantser. He wrote by the seat of his pants. And sometimes he wrote himself into corners and had to get out of them. Sometimes he had to throw away work because it just didn't fit, didn't work. So he had gotten to a point where he just written himself into a corner, did not know how to get himself out of it. And he was just really frustrated and started wandering around his house. And he went to his friend Pat Conroy's Lords of Discipline, flipped open a page, and he and Conroy were really good friends before Terry ever got published. And Pat was just starting to get published. And he just started reading some of the Lords of Discipline. That distracted him just enough for that little being in his head to come up with a creative solution to his creative problem. Halfway down the page, reading the Lords of Discipline, he goes, I got it. I know what I'm going to do. And he went back to his work desk, started writing again. And when critics were reviewing that novel, they would pull the passage that he wrote out and say that this was some of the best writing Terry Kay has ever done. It's all because he distracted himself, and focused on something else that was creative, so that his subconscious could work through. Now that's what basically I'm telling you is, miracles will happen. Just trust that the miracles will happen. I know that you can do that. I don't trust that miracles are going to happen. I have to work at it, So it's like that Edison quote about the harder I work, the luckier I get. So you can't just trust that, okay, if I spend, 15 minutes reading The Lords of Discipline, all my writer's block problems are going to be solved. Maybe not. But that's something that can work for you, is going back and rereading something that inspired you in the first place. So it's just another tool in your toolbox. But I think the most important thing is that last one, remembering what you wanted to say. It is so easy to bog down in the mechanics of all of this. Writing scenes, if you're a novelist, there is so much that goes into each scene. Setting, dialogue, action, conflict, resolution, increasing problems, just all the ways your characters are going to enact, the tone you're going to use, the style you've chosen. All of these things are happening all the time, and they're all moving parts happening in a virtual space in your brain. And it's really, really difficult to keep all those gears meshed and turning and all that. And, so sometimes when that all gums up and comes to a grinding halt, just remembering the story you wanted to tell, the way you wanted to make people feel, or the way you wanted to change their perception of something, or give them some insight they didn't have before. Sometimes just remembering all of that can get those gears lubricated and working again. So just remembering why you wanted to write in the first place is really helpful for overcoming writer's block. So eventually you finish, and that's the, and a miracle occurs part, is the how do you finish? Because you can be on your third edit of a manuscript. Again, I'm on version 18 of this science fiction book that I've been dabbling with for 10 years. And I can't let go of, because I love the stuff in there, but I know it's not quite right too. So I keep coming back and tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. So how do you know you're done? You're done, as I said, when you cannot stand to look at it one more time. And then you got to give it to other people and ask what they think. And eventually they tell you, yeah, this is done. This is ready. So, timelines for a book. And it all starts with, what are your ambitions about the book? Do you want to write a book for family so that you have something to leave behind, or something to teach the next generation about your family or about yourself? Is that the reason you started writing? If so, I recommend self-publishing that book, getting it in your family's hands as soon as you think your story's ready. There is no reason to go after traditional publication for a book that you really only intend family to see and to receive. Self-publishing is nowadays super easy. You can do Amazon KDP for free, and you pay nothing, and you can have a book loaded up and ready for sale, literally within hours. But you better have your cover art and all that stuff ready. But it can be just that fast and just that easy. If your ambition is to make a business of your writing, that, I want to be a published author, and I want to do book signings, I want to do book talks, I want to sell 1 million copies. Well, there are two ways to go about that. One, the traditional route that, with a big name publisher and literary agents and all that, and then there's a self-publishing route. So let's talk about the self-publishing route. If you want to treat being a writer like a business, then you have to go to school on all of those aspects that it takes, because it's not just writing. In fact, writing is the least of it. If you're going to self-publish a book, the purpose of which is to sell to strangers, because you're going to run out of friends and family. If you just write a book for friends and family, that's a very finite group. But if you want to sell books to strangers, that's when you want to make a business out of writing. So if you're going to do that, then you've got to go to school on how to market this book. how to get it in people's hands, how to make sure they see it. How are people going to learn about it? There are millions of books being published every year. I used to do a talk 10 years ago, and there was a stat, something like 2 million books that were self-published in 2012, and there were 1.5 million traditionally published books in 2012. Well, that was 10 years ago. That was 10 years ago. You imagine how many more books have been published since then, traditionally and self-published. That's that many more millions of competitors you have. Every other book that's ever been published and is available for sale is potentially your competitor. Then you narrow it down to genre. Okay, how many romances have been ever published and are for sale if I'm writing romance? How many mysteries? There are still millions that you're competing against. How do you get known? How do you get seen? You have to go to school on all of that. Incredibly difficult, but doable. And we hear about it all the time. Another, self-published breakout bestseller. And sometimes these people get picked up by traditional publishing, and sometimes they start in traditional publishing and end up in self-publishing because they realize it's more lucrative for them. It's lucrative for them, those who have gone from traditional publishing to self-publishing, because they've already built their audience through their traditional publisher. And then they just take them with us and say, Random House, I don't need you anymore. I got my peeps, and they're going to buy everything I write. So, easy to do, once you've been published and you're a best-selling writer. Much harder to do when you're starting out. Self-published nobody. So how do you do that? So it's learning all about marketing. It's taking courses. It's watching what lots of other self-published authors do who are successful. Lots of them have blog posts that they do, that they, do Facebook meetings with, that they post about it, they write about it, they're interviewed about it, and they basically tell you their secrets. Some of them write and publish books about how to do what they did. There's an author named Tim Grahl, Grahl, who wrote a book called Your First 1,000 Copies, where he basically lays out, here is how to sell the first 1,000 copies of your book. Here's what you got to do pre-publication. Here's how you launch a book, and all of this. And he's basically created a career around helping other authors get their books launched, and has written about it. So there's lots of information for you about how to do this. None of this is insurmountable, but you got to go to school on it. You can't just put your book out there and wait for the money to roll in. So nobody will know it's there. And unfortunately, lots of people think that's all they need to do. All I need to do is write a really good book, and everybody knows the Field of Dreams line, right? If you build it, they will come. That is such crap. That is such horrible advice. It worked well in a movie. It's a fantasy movie, folks, with ghosts playing baseball in a cornfield. Fantasy. In real life, if you build it, nobody cares, because they're all busy building their stuff and consuming the stuff that other people have built. So you've got to figure out, all right, I'm going to build it, and now how do I get people to come? And so, and that's a lifetime of work, is constantly refining that and reaching a bigger and bigger audience. And you're never done.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of where you're going to go, but a hybrid of self-publishing to a geographic area where a nonfiction book centers around that I know would have interest. Can you sometimes do that and get it out in that locality and it does well, then go to a traditional publisher and say I've sold 1,500 copies or 2,000 copies?
Yeah, so if you didn't hear the question, can you have a regional book that you self-publish because you know people in the region will be interested in that topic? And then, once you build up a record of sales, go to a traditional publisher and say, hey, I have sold this many on my own with your marketing might behind. Think of the number of copies we can sell. You absolutely can. So the magic number currently is 10,000 books. So at the Atlanta Writers Conference, that's what I hear from the acquisitions editors and the agents. If you bring me a self-published book, and I'm open to self-published books, I'm only open if you can demonstrate sales of 10,000 or more. I have a friend who wrote a book about the St. Louis Cardinals bat boy who has Down syndrome and was regionally famous. People in the Midwest love this kid named Teddy. So my friend worked with Teddy and his family. His family approached my friend and said, we would like you to, write Teddy's story. And so, he worked with Teddy, he worked with the family, published this book called Stealing First. And it was all about Teddy's growing up and his love of baseball and becoming bat boy for the St. Louis Cardinals and being recognized. He could walk through a parking lot, outside is it still Busch Stadium? Yeah. Outside of Busch, and almost never being able to get to the entrance because so many people would stop him and ask for his autograph. He was autographing as many baseballs as the players were. Everybody loved him. So they wrote this book, they self-published it, and he would then do book signings at the ballpark sometimes, and very regionally focused book. It has sold some thousands of copies, but not enough to interest a traditional publisher. So the feedback he's gotten is, well, you haven't sold that many books, and have you sold all the books that there are to sell? Because he's interfacing with the people who would buy the books, and you've only sold, whatever it was at the time, 7,500 copies. Maybe you've sold all the books there are to sell. And that's their comeback is, well, maybe you've tapped that market, and there's no more market left to go after. So that's the downside. What my friend decided, and Teddy and his family decided, was they're just going to keep, selling these books at, at ball games, and and just enjoy this rather than hope that, Penguin Random House comes knocking. And maybe eventually Penguin Random House will, but not yet. So, having a regional book out there that you self-publish, sometimes that's your market, and you just make the most of it. And, and you curtail your ambitions, about getting a bestseller out of this. It's just, this is what this book is designed to do, and I'm doing it, and that's enough.
Traditional publishers, what's it take, about 3-4 years for a book to come out?
Well, let's see. Once it's acquired, so we'll go through the whole timeline. It's actually a good lead-in. So we'll go through the whole timeline, but once it's acquired, typically 18 months to 2 years after you sign a contract with the publisher, your book is out there, in the libraries, in the bookstores for sale. That's about the timeline they're working on, 18 months to 2 years. Now, how long does it take to get a traditional publishing contract? Well, there and again, you got two camps here. There are small publishers like mine, which is an itty-bitty publisher. They don't care if you have an agent or not. They accept unagented authors, they call it. They don't care about working with an agent. Then there are the big guys. The big guys is the big five. There used to be 12, and then there were 7, and now there are only 5 major publishers. Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House, Hachette, Farrar South, something Giroux, FSG, and one other. I'm sorry? Yep. So there are not many big publishers out there. And with all this concentrated focus means that there are all the authors want to get published by very few people, very few acquisitions editors to acquire those books and see them through the process. So they put up a gatekeeper. The gatekeeper is the literary agent. It's like, no, we only accept agented books. You've got to be represented first. So, well, shoot, now I got to find a literary agent if I want to get published by one of the big guys. How do you find a literary agent? Well, you start with a query letter. So a query letter is a business letter. It is not a creative document. It's not like your manuscript, which has gorgeous words and all that. It is a business letter. And the query letter is you querying a publisher or an agent to say, this is what my book's about. Here are some titles that are comps, that are comparative, comparable to my book. And here's a little bit about me. And that's all your query letter is doing. Basic business letter has to be short, has to be sweet, and has to have all the information they want to see. And there are countless resources tell you on the internet, tell you how to write a query letter. That little bit about what your book's about, they want to know if this is a novel, what's the genre, what's the word count, what's the basic conflict, what's at stake. They always want to know the stakes, And not all of us are writing books where the world is at stake, the universe is at stake, Sometimes it's very small. Sometimes it's just, this person's good mental health is at stake, These children's futures are at stake. That was Hardscrabble Road. Will these kids survive their horrible childhood with a psychopathic bootlegger father and a mother who has no interest raising her kids? That's basically, the what's at stake, for these kids. But the world couldn't care less. It's not a, it's not a book about saving the world. It's just about them saving their individual lives. So you got to figure out the stakes. You got to present that very concisely so that the agent will attach to it and go, oh, that's interesting. Haven't read anything like that for a while. We're not representing anything like that because that's key. Lots and lots of people who write books only to discover that their dream agency is already representing a book like that, because there are only so many ideas out there. Well, yeah, we got another client in our stable who, writes like that, who has a similar protagonist, and, sorry, pass. It's a good idea, but we're already doing something like that. Yeah.
I think probably a person of a certain age should consider self-publishing.
Well, given the timelines, absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree. That, if you are time-bound, and let's face it, we are all time-bound, as, the bell will toll for each one of us. We just don't know when. But, if you are up there in years and your ambition is to see your work in print, have your friends buy it, your family buy it, and that is your ambition, then you totally ought to self-publish. Forget the traditional guys. They're going to take too long. If your ambition is to be on the New York Times bestseller list, USA Today bestseller list, or at least see your books in bookstores and see it for sale and be able to go to a bookstore and say, I want to do a signing. I'm published by publisher XYZ, where you have instant credibility because you're published by, a known publisher. Then you've got to go the traditional route. You are just forced to do that unless you're one of those unicorns who can turn a self-publishing book into a bestseller. Those are rare. And I got to be honest, most self-published authors sell 500 or fewer copies of their books. That's it. That's the industry standard. Yes, ma'am.
What you're saying about the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing, right? I understand that there would be a very difficult jump with the same book, but if you had self-published something as a children's genre already, but now you wanted to write an adult novel, is that still off the table still to most publishers? Or
Nothing off the table. The traditional publishers don't care if you've self-published other kinds of books, and now you're writing something totally different. The example I was speaking of was if you want to take that self-published book and say, here, Penguin or Random House, I want you to republish it and repackage it and take it further than I was able to take it, you know? Or I've taken it so far, look how many books I've sold. You guys can do even better. You know, that's the scenario. Actually, more and more traditional publishers like the fact that people have self-published some books and gotten some mileage under them, and they kind of know what they're facing now, and they're a little battle-tested now, little harder. You know, the rough edges have been kind of smoothed and all, and they're just more savvy writers. You know, they know how to market, or at least know what not to do. So I think traditional publishers like that people have gone through the minor leagues, if you will, you know, and have come through and are now ready for big time. Jennifer, did you have a question? Okay. So, yeah, absolutely. If you're of a certain age and, you know, time is critical and you want to just get your work out there, absolutely self-publish. Why do you want to get traditionally published? What are the reasons to get traditionally published? Well, you know, if you want the credibility of somebody else saying, I like this book so much, I will put my money on it, then you want to be traditionally published. You know, and that's why I wanted to be traditionally published. I wanted for somebody else to say, I like this well enough that I'm going to back it with my own money. Total ego, and I'll absolutely admit that. It's simply an ego thing for me, because I didn't want to go out and buy myself an award and put it on the shelf. And I thank Kim for that. And say, look, I've been published. Well, no, I published myself. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm not going to run around trumpeting, look, I've been published if I've self-published my work, because no, it just means I have a check that cleared, or, you know, I had money on my credit card. That's all that means. And I wanted it to mean something more in my mind and my heart, that somebody was willing to back me. You know, somebody's willing to put their money behind me. That was going to feel really good, and that's why I went for traditional publishing. That's all I did. Yep.
And just real quick, so you mentioned 500 copies if you're self-publishing was a typical number.
Yep.
Below that probably is the typical. And then, but when it's a large publisher, is there a number? Is that another possible benefit that you have a little fighter?
Yeah. So what I have heard is 1,200 to 2,500 copies is what most traditionally published authors sell. Which, when you look at the money and all of the manpower put behind a traditionally published book, is terrible. That's just awful. They hardly ever recoup their investment in an individual author. Even if they didn't pay them in advance, they rarely recoup the expenses of all the creative, manpower they have put behind an individual title, and it just doesn't sell that many. Stephen King, without Stephen King, his publisher is not able to publish all these other authors, because they're just not making that much money on any individual author. I had a friend, God bless her, she got an advance for $650,000. She got her agent through the Atlanta Writers Conference. Agent sold her book at auction, 2-book deal to a major publisher, HarperCollins, and her book came out in hardback. Nobody had ever heard of her before. Her sales were pretty mediocre. And then they didn't put any muscle behind her second book because her first book was, didn't do well, and now she's looking for a new publisher. Basically, her agent washed their hands, the publisher washed their hands, and she's back at it again. You just had to get a new agent. She just landed a new agent. She's trying again. And that's because, the average author does not sell that many books.
step in just research, and I just wanted to get your take on this, is looking at now more of the forward-thinking social media. What's their presence online, and do they already have a strong following? To your point, are they worthwhile to invest? And so if you're not someone that's a public figure or just trying to get started, is that something that you would recommend? Start building a presence online to have at least name recognition.
Okay, so our question is, do you want to start building up name recognition now before you even have a manuscript to peddle? Before you have a manuscript to send to agents and editors, is it worth building a following now and creating that platform? And what I hear from the traditional publishers, that's nice, but it's all about the manuscript. It's all about, if you're writing fiction, it's all about the story and the characters. If you're writing nonfiction, it's all about your credibility as an author and why you're the best person to tell the, journalistic story, the true crime story, or whatever it was you were telling in nonfiction. It's all about that manuscript. And having a big social media following is more icing on the cake, but they are acquiring a product, and that product is what they're focused on. It increases your credibility if you can, say, well, I've got 50,000 TikTok followers or whatever. That's great. That's nice. But if you've written a book that they don't like, they won't care. You can have 1 million, and really doesn't matter because they don't want to put their name behind a book they don't like. So it all starts with the manuscript, unfortunately. But when you got a book coming out, when you're starting to shop it, you better start building an audience because you want to have people to sell to. Yeah.
Is there a need to copyright a manuscript before you start sending it out?
No, sir. As soon as you have saved the document on your computer, it is copyrighted. They talk about the poor man's copyright, where you mail a copy of your manuscript to yourself. No, it's not necessary. And when you put a copyright mark on a manuscript that you submit to an agent, it really pisses them off. Because what you're telling them is, look right here, this is mine, don't you dare steal it, I do not trust you. Well, they say, well, if you don't trust me, why do you want to go in business with me? So there is a certain degree of trust that takes place. And by the way, if anybody wanted to steal your manuscript, they just would. They would blow right past that copyright. In fact, that would kind of jazz them a little bit. You say, oh, even better, this guy's got a copyright all over it. I'm gonna have this out in Malaysia tomorrow. You and then you.
Does the same rule apply to the children's genre?
The rule of
publishing and self-publishing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This applies to children's books. It applies all over the place. With children's books, if you're doing picture books, then you have the additional hurdle of, well, are you able to illustrate as well as write? And if you've just got a really great story for kids, then you need to find an illustrator who can capture your vision, and reflect your words, with illustrations. And it's even a bigger hill to climb sometimes with children's books. I really have a lot of respect for children's book writers because of that additional, burden of the illustrations, which really make the book, As much as the words are important, if I say where the wild things are, you do not think of Maurice Sendek's words, right? You think of Max, with the monsters and all that. So a lot of it hinges on the illustration. Am I out of time, or can I just keep talking? Okay.
We need to be wrapping it up for the last maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Okay. Yep.
I'm sorry, 2 quick questions. Benefits and challenges of using a pen name?
All right. So the benefits of using a pen name is you can write in multiple genres and not confuse people. So if you're writing, I want to write, well, if you do what I do, which I don't recommend doing, everything's published under my name, but I've got a murder mystery, a kidnapping suspense thriller, a southern historical fiction, modern romance, and I've got 2 other books that I don't have here for sale because I sold out of them last year. All under one name, and somebody who reads one of my books might not be interested in my other books because it's not in the same genre they read in. So they get frustrated. They say, well, let me know when you write another historical novel because that's all I read. That's why I enjoy reading. But, lately you've written mysteries and thrillers. So they get frustrated and they forget about you and move on, and then they never go back and say, oh, I wonder if George ever wrote another historical novel. The benefit, of course, of doing a pen name is you could have, multiple pen names, multiple personalities, and people who love, name A can just read books by name A and find more of those, and name B for your other genre can just find those and not be frustrated. The con, of course, is you have to create multiple personae. So you've got to have websites for, each one. You've got to have different social media presence for each one. So that's the downside, is that you're creating a new personality, who's going to have to market these books, And how do you do that if all of them have your face on them, Well, they just used the back of your head on one. And seriously, I'm thinking about this right now because I've got a sci-fi novel that is so different from all my other things. I think it would confuse and annoy some of my readers who like my other stuff. So it's like, all right, well, I could use this pen name, but then what do I do about this? Do I just never show my face? Am I like Dwight Yoakam and I always have my face kind of covered with a cowboy hat? What do I do? So that's a big hurdle. So that's the big con, is having to do everything double and triple,
How do you determine the visual on the front of your book?
Since I'm traditionally published, the publisher hires has cover artists, and I'm lucky that I sell enough books with my publisher that they will give me right of first refusal. So if they do a cover and I don't like it, I can give creative input, and they'll actually take my ideas and implement them. If you're self-published, of course, you choose your own covers. And if you're published by a big publisher, then you might not have that ability to say, I don't like this. So there's a friend of mine who's published by a university press, but they were big enough that they thought that, they don't care what the authors think. So they put a red barn on his book cover. He said, there's no red barn in this book. And they said, well, that's tough because you got a red barn on your cover. So when he got the edits back and was able to, submit a new a rewritten manuscript before publication, he put a red barn in one scene and he burned it down in the next scene. And that was his revenge on his publisher. So let's set that sucker on fire. So sometimes it's out of your hands. And if you have a really big publisher and you're a little fish in a big old ocean, you don't get, the ability to, to do anything. It's like, this is your cover, you better fall in love with it. Because we got 60 other authors who are backed up behind you, and, their books are coming out too. So that's the downside of being published by a big press, is that, sometimes they don't care what your opinion are. They're the pros, they're the experts, and you just got to live with whatever they want. Yeah.
She had the same question.
Oh, okay, great.
I will go try to one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick. I've read that for a novel, nobody's going to look at it traditionally unless you have 50,000 words at least.
Yeah, depending on the genre. So 50,000 words is very short for an adult novel. If you've got a middle grade book, 55 to 65,000 words is kind of the sweet spot. And they're actually, middle grade books are getting longer. So, sometimes 70,000, 80,000 words in a middle grade book. Kids, it turns out, those who like to read want to keep reading. Harry Potter taught us this. So if you've got an adult novel, usually 70,000 words, 65,000 words to 70,000 words is sort of the minimum, that most publishers want to see. If you've got a self-published book, it can be whatever you want it to be, of course. But and then with other genres like high fantasy, they want more words. Sci-fi, a big space opera, they want over 100,000 words, but not too big, 120,000. Yeah.
But if the story's done, if it's finished, it's at 50,000 words, that's your novel. It's a novella.
Well, it's a novella, right? And you either look for a publisher who's interested in novellas, or you self-publish it and say, "Here's my short novel." And occasionally novellas have done very well. Remember a book called Bright Lights, Big City? It came out in the 1980s, all about wild and crazy times in the drug culture. That's a tiny book. That book is probably 45,000, maybe 40,000 words. But it got huge. Brokeback Mountain was kind of a longest short story, and it's huge.
Nicholas Sparks, I think, had one that his first book was like 45,000 words.
Yeah. So there's some examples, but they're pretty rare.
So any tips? I had the opposite problem. Mine was originally about 190,000.
Wow.
And everybody was
That's 2 books.
Yeah, that's what they say, but I don't know where to cut it.
Yep.
So I've been working for months now to reduce it, and I'm down to like 165. So,
Right.
And it's killing me because I don't really have scenes that I feel like I could take out. I guess I need one of those editors.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could use a developmental editor, but you also might look at, rather than, so go back to your original 190,000 and say, so where could I leave this book 1 on a cliffhanger? That ties up some things, but it's almost like ending a season, of a TV show. And they often will have a cliffhanger to get you to start watching season 2. They won't tie it up everything in a nice, neat bow. So you might play the what if game and say, what if, we end here for book 1, ties up some things, leaves some things unanswered, gets people to go into book 2. So you might reframe it that way.
Publish the second one first. The second part first.
Yeah.
I guess you could do that too, I suppose.
Sure.
I'm just looking for it because
You could do anything you want. Yeah. Yeah. So I would actually go back and look to see, rather than cutting out stuff and it hurts you every time, just go back to your original 190,000 words and say, where can I make a nice dividing line and have a 90,000 word novel and 100,000 words, or whatever it is. However the math works out. But it's all about plot, and what's happening with the characters and all, and is this a nice place to, leave the readers hungry for more, without leaving them frustrated because you just kind of end, with everything up in the air. Yeah, and that might require some rewriting, but that might get you where you want to go. So I've got some homework assignment for you. And this is just writer's project manager. So what's your dream? What do you want to accomplish with your book? Figure this out. Write it down. Write down your goal. What will help you realize your dream? What's the plan? How are you going to accomplish this goal? Very important. Often overlooked is the how. How are you going to do this? Often it means carving out time to write, ignoring my family, doing other things that are sacrifices, right? All the things we talked about, big sacrifices. What's the deadline? And this is another thing that often gets neglected. You've got to give yourself a deadline for the entire project and then all the points along the way. I want this done by here. And I think, it's not written down here, but I think you need to tell other people, this is my deadline. Help me achieve this deadline. Bug the crap out of me to ask me, well, you had a deadline, you had one of these little sub-achievement things you wanted to finish, so you get to finish your overall project. Did you finish chapter 7? You said you were going to do that by by Tuesday. It's Wednesday. Did you do it? Have people bug you. Hold you accountable. It's like telling people you're a writer. Once you share these goals with people and share the deadlines with people and say, hold me accountable, I want you to call me. I want you to text me. I want you to email me. That's a really great way to incentivize you, because you don't want to, you don't want to look bad to these people. So, what are the deadlines? And then, most importantly, how are you going to reward yourself once you achieve this goal? Because this is such hard work. You need to have a reward that's that's worth it, something you're working toward. And even if it's just, throwing yourself a big old party, whatever it is, figure out a reward that you can look at and say, well, I want this to happen, so I got to do the hard work to get there. So, any other questions? If not, I've got some books for sale. I've got Atlanta Writers Club information for you, and thank you very much.
Thank you again, George, for taking time out of your schedule to give your great advice for all of our soon-to-be writers. And we hope you've enjoyed this workshop. Please follow us on social media and our Gwinnett website, a Gwinnett County Public Library website. We have lots more writer workshops and our Meet the Authors, and our Indie Author Day is coming back for 2022. So check all that out on our website, and we look forward to seeing you again soon at one of our upcoming programs. Thank you so much.